Bwana PS of Lands. Introduce yourself and why you invited us here to this meeting at Mount Sochi Hotel.
Oh, I'm Dave Chilonga, Secretary for Lands, working on behalf of Malawians to ensure that there's good land governance in Malawi. And we had invited faith leaders, civil society organization, academia and others to tell them what the new land laws are saying, because these laws are for the Malawians.
Why was it important to call us, and also what has prompted the land laws?
First of all, it is important to have an engagement with our faith leaders who have the congregation or the audience, and they can help us to disseminate correct information because they work with people in their jurisdictions. So too with the civil society organizations, so too with the academia. They have so many students which they can explain the law very clearly to. So we thought we should have a conversation with you, looking at the provisions, getting questions, clarifying, and lobbying for your support. We are willing to work even with the faith leaders to do the awareness raising of these laws, whether the faith leaders have resources or we have resources or work together. These laws, it's a process which has taken us over 22 years,
sure,
from 1996 to date, a lot of consultations, a lot of research. So it's now time to implement. It's now time to work with our faith leaders and other interested groups to have these laws being enforced in our community.
We can't talk of everything that we have discussed in this meeting, but I was very much interested with the way you elaborated on the customary law. Can you just say something? Because we find that a lot of people in the villages out there, they are selling land every time, and then they lament afterwards after they have sold the land. What is the new land laws say?
The main thing in the Customer Land Act is that we should map all customer land parcels in Malawi, and we should ensure that the villagers have their own certificates, either as an individual or a group of persons or a family or a cooperative or any group which is registered. And they will not be allowed to sell once that customer land has been mapped and have been given the certificate, what we call adjudication, demarcation, and registration. Once that process is done, they will not be allowed to sell. But the main thing in this law is that they will be allowed to lease out the land to the people who want to invest on that land. The initial ownership, the original ownership, will remain with the one whom the land has been registered in his favor. In this case, it's being called customary estate.
Okay.
So that the customary estate cannot be sold, but you can be able to lease out to somebody to do his investment, be it a filling station, warehouse, or whatever, for a period. In other words, it can be renewed later after the lease has expired, because the lease is always having a term. And that person, even after putting up a warehouse on that customer estate, the second person can even sublease it to another person.
Okay.
All of these can use the same land, but the original ownership would remain with the villager who was passed on this land from his parents. That's the main scheme to protect the original owner, to remain the owner, while those who have money to use that land can come use it. They will have their own agreements duly registered at the land register at the district level. This is also the other thing in there, which is very, very important, that we are developing the functions. We will have district land registers in all districts. We've already deployed some in Chikwawa and other districts. That land registration should be done at a district council without necessarily going to Lilongwe or Blantyre to reduce transaction costs of our villagers. They should be able to transact on land issues right in their district. The third strong thing as well is that the Customer Land Act has provided for tribunals. Apart from the Customer Land Committee at a group village headman level, which is chaired by the group village headman, what the TA was doing has been formalized. Hearing cases on customer land, he will be the chairperson for the Customer Land Tribunal. But this time around, he will have people with him which have been appointed by him, approved by the district commissioner. And the law will regulate how they should discharge their functions as a tribunal. And one can appeal to the district land tribunal, which will be chaired by the senior chief in that district. And the law is also regulating how they should discharge their functions. If one is not satisfied, that can be referred to the Central Land Board at national level. That is also being regulated by the law, and it's chaired by Paramount Chief, one of the Paramount Chiefs in Malawi, on a rotating basis. So a Paramount Chief would be there for 3 years. After 3 years, another one, another one, another one. The idea is that much as we are hearing these cases as our traditional authorities, with due respect, they should be doing it within the confines of the Customer Land Act. In so doing, there will be transparency and accountability. Everything will be minuted and everything can be checked before it can be referred to the formal courts.
Very interesting. Now the last question. I think in the meeting, one of the questions that was coming up was that you see, there are other people, they declare themselves as Malawian citizens, and just by marrying somebody in Malawi, and yet we know they are foreigners. How is this land customary law act or addressing these issues? Who is a foreigner and who is a citizen?
So the Land Act, as amended in 2022, the Land Act of 2016, has simply said vacant land cannot be sold. But your question is going to Customer Land Act. Customer Land Act has defined who is an indigenous Malawian, because the Land Act itself, the Principal Act, the Land Act, has stated that there will be no any granting of land to foreigners unless they are for investment purposes, and that can only be done through the Malawi Investment Trade Center, because Malawi Investment Trade Center has expertise to know who is a genuine investor or not, be it local or international. But because Section 11 of the Land Act was talking about a foreigner or investors who are foreigners, by amending it in the Land Act Amendment of 2022, it was also necessary, since these investors would go to the customary land, to define who is a Malawian, and that has been extended to say who is an indigenous Malawian.
Yeah.
Much as there are already laws which are defining who is a Malawian. That's why you see how national IDs are issued, or passports, and under laws which are relevant to such kind of topics. But in the context of customary land in Malawi, there is a definition of who is an indigenous Malawian.
Yes.
Because customary estate can only be granted to an indigenous Malawian.
Malawian. Okay.
Because customary state is equal or above freehold status.
Okay.
Because of that, it has been confined to an indigenous Malawian.
Mm-hmm.
And the law has defined an indigenous Malawian as somebody who can identify himself by one of the